Hi, today we're going to do some fade action inside of Pixar Control. So we are going to start off with a Pixar fade parameter module. Module has been done by Benjamin Miller. Kudos for that. Thank you so much. So come in here and we pop in the timeline. That's what we want to do, and we're expecting a string timeline, a value, the final value it's going to, and the time in milliseconds, which it should take that this and status has been reached. Okay, so let's start by doing a button, and that's going to trigger our timeline. And yes, we want to have the opacity, and let's pop in the values, and that should trigger timeline 1, and it should be a fade down. So value is between 0 and 1. 1 is at full and 0 as none. So we're going to give it a 0 for the fade down, and I don't know, 5,000 milliseconds. Which should be 5 seconds. Okay, I'm going to store that. And okay. Then we're going to check. Yes, the timeline is at full, timeline 1. And we are going to put that into run mode. We're going to execute and going to check if it's happening. And here's our fade down. Okay, that's good. Now we have fade down. We can have another button that does a fade up, and so on and so on, and that we could have as for as many timelines as we have. Okay. Crossfade. For crossfade we need actually 2 actions, but we don't have that inside of our buttons. So the thing is, we would actually come in here and usually I grab a new module and I create an action. I'm gonna call that fade up, or anything you like, basically. And inside this module, now we're coming to a bit of programming. Really simple program, and this is preliminary, as we are going to see an actual API call inside of the next betas, where you just kind of define, okay, please fade this timeline, this layer, this whatever parameter in a given time to a given value. So you just call up that API call. That's going to be really easy. But right now we have to do it this way, and I'm going to do it self.a. That's my variable name, equals to, and that's going to be a string, and that's why I'm going to have to put this into parentheses, and that's going to be my timeline 1. Okay, fine. Now I call that variable self.a because otherwise it would be global variable, and if I have my self.a here in front of it, myself, then this is only valid inside of this action and doesn't disturb any, there's not going to be an interaction with other actions or modules. Okay, gonna have my self.b, and that should equal to 1 because I want to have the fade up now, so I want this timeline to go to opacity 1, and my self.c, that is going to equal 5,000 milliseconds. Okay. Now I just define my variables. Now I need the whole program to actually pass those on. And I'm going to need to define the order in which the strings are going to be, or the values are going to be passed on. And I must start with string timeline, and after that I want to send the integer value, and after that I want to send the integer time in milliseconds. So come in here, and there's a there's a functionality inside of Pixara Control, which is called Pixie. And once you type that in with a point, it gives you all the things you can do with the Pixie call. So we want to have the call refs. And with the pixie.callrefs, I'm gonna pop open the round brackets, and then I'm going to define the first value I want to pass on. It's going to be self.a. Then I separate with a comma, and then I want to pass on self.b, separated with a comma, and a self.c. Okay, let's store that. Okay, and now I need to connect my newly create action with my action inside of my Pixara fade parameter too. So once I execute that fade up, it should actually pass the values into Pixara fade parameter, and this should trigger that the timeline is actually doing an upfade. Okay, let's see how that works. And fade up. Whoop. And here we go. So that works. So this is just one action. We need to kind of add more actions for my fade up and down and do all those kind of things. Because I don't want to bore you too much, obviously I have prepared something like that. And what I've done was I've created my fade up and my fade down actions for the timelines, and that I'm feeding all that into my fade timeline opacity. And because I want to trigger that, and I just have one action to trigger inside of button, I created like a multiplex, and I created two buttons, like 1/2 and 2/1. Inside of that 1/2, I trigger action 1/2, this one, and there's nothing inside of that action. What it does is, and this triggers the fade up of timeline 1, and it triggers at the same time, it triggers the fade down timeline 2. If we want to check where this connection is actually going, I'm going to do a shift and a left click on my connection, and now I'm seeing where my connection is actually going. If that here and here. Okay, good. Now, which state do I have? I have timeline 1 is up. So, okay, come here and my buttons, and I open my buttons in the browser, put it into run status, compositing. Okay, and now when the crossfade 2/1 and 1/2, and I'm all getting all my crossfades. And that could be any kind of combination, up, down, left, right, with as many timelines as you want to have. One really interesting thought here, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to demonstrate that, is when we actually pass values. So if we would not define a string here that says timeline 1, but rather go with a variable that can be executed by a button. So we could exchange that by a self.e, or I don't know, variable that's called selector for timelines, or anything you'd like, and that we kind of define with a button row. It's like, okay, I pre-select a timeline via a button that just passes on a value inside, you know, it's like inside of my my action here, that defines which timeline is going to be called. So I could, you know, it's like with two actions, I could like have crossfades between any kind of pre-selected situations. That's something for you to check out, to try out. If you just like, let me know, drop a video, drop a file, or you know, anything. Let us know how it's going, and how you like that. Okay, thank you so much. Have a good one.